What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Halfback Dynasty. My name is Brendan. We are joined today with our co-host, legendary Gator Sense, Tyler. How the heck you feeling, my man?
Feeling great, Brendan. Just hanging out like you, hoping to watch a little lacrosse, which is not happening because of the weather delay. Looks like Champions League's delayed now too, but hey, man, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Dynasty. Been an eventful off season, been a fun off season. I'm trying to make yet another bad trade with you. We might just make it on air. Let's get this kicked off well here in the off season.
I love it, brother. I love it. It's been a while. We took a little hiatus. Lots going on in the personal life, but we have devoted time today to talk about devoting even more time and taking Halfback Dynasty to the next level. Tyler, I'm really looking forward to it. I think there's a lot of great things coming for our channel in the near future. So a lot has happened. I think the best thing to talk about currently are rookie drafts. In terms of draft class, we've seen a lot of fluctuation in values for the 2022 class. We've seen people trade 2022 draft picks for 2023 draft picks, which the idea is 2023 class is way more loaded. So let's talk about this year's class. With every draft class, Tyler, no matter if it's deemed, the best of all time, the worst of all time, there are always studs that come out. There's always studs in the first round, the second round, a couple maybe in the third. How would you rank this draft class? And do you have a lot of confidence in some of the players that you have seen go in, let's say, the first round of this year?
Honestly, as the offseason's gone along, I think I've come around to the class a little bit. I'm not going to say it's great. I think it's pretty solid at the top. I mean, obviously, Breece Hall, anybody be thrilled to add Breece Hall. The running back class isn't great, but that being said, I think there was extreme value with what happened to Spiller at the Combine, at his pro day, and where he landed. To me, I mean, I landed Spiller at the 111, and I was thrilled. I mean, I think Austin Eckler's getting older. Austin Eckler said in the news he doesn't want as many touches as he got last year. To me, Spiller screams like Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch wasn't fast. His combine numbers were not great, but he turned into be one of the best running backs of his generation, really, that short 5-year window there. So I think there's a lot of value in this class. I still thought some of the guys that went in the second round of most rookie drafts were good. From there, yeah, I think the class is pretty poor, but I think you could say that for a lot of classes. But, it was kind of interesting. The top 5 or 6 wide receivers of this class, I think, are a little bit underrated. If you had picks this year coming out with London, Olave, Burks to an extent. I'm not a Burks guy. I don't think Burks is great. I don't like his separation. I don't like his skill set overly well. Jameson Williams. So yeah, I think next year's class is much, much better at the top, more specifically at the top. But you and I made that big trade on draft day, and with you kind of rebuilding heavily, obviously Robinson is the prize next year. And I told myself, based on your rebuild and the amount of picks you own, you're going to own the 1-1. So it's like, I'm not getting Robinson anyways. And I was thrilled with our trade to be able to grab a couple young wideouts. Cause obviously we'll see what happens with ATN. I think I made kind of a poor trade last year, moving DJ Moore and T Higgins, and was kind of reeling from that all season. Obviously got ATN coming back, but looking at our trade on draft day, I was hoping to land Williams, but coming out with Olave and London, I was thrilled to get a couple young receivers back in the pipeline. So I think depending on your build, what you have to give up and how many picks you own in this class, I think there's players to get excited about in this class far more than maybe when we talked about it in December or kind of middle of the year. But yeah, I think 2023 is obviously the more superior class, but a lot of that comes down to running backs. Running backs are king in Dynasty. Way better running back class in 2023. But you know, the
2020
wide
was a
receiver,
pretty decent class.
absolutely. But I think the wide receiver class this year and next year are relatively similar. I really do.
Yeah.
The prize is running back, and that's what made. I had this conversation with my brother. That's what makes this class so weak. Is the running backs are weak. You know, they really are. When you're talking about that, I mean, Kenneth Walker landed in a great spot, but Kenneth Walker's college stats are not great. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. And again, to me, Spiller's the sleeper gem of this class. James Cook, I think, will disappoint. James Cook is not for an NFL running back. James Cook is really small. I don't even think he's over 200 pounds. Like, he's not going to be a heavy workload guy like I think some think. So
I think it was a lack of running backs that you felt the need to take him in terms of the potential opportunity he has. He screams bust to me. I don't think he's worth the first round pick. I think a lot of people feel they need to reach because of the value on running backs, since they're a lot more difficult to find. But yeah, he screams somebody I would not want on my roster for that high of a price.
Yeah, and I think you are reaching to take Cook where, you know, if you got Cook in the mid-second, sure, but
yeah,
that's not happening.
He went at the 108 in our draft. So, and you know,
which is a lot, you know,
it's a lot.
It's a hefty investment. And that's why, you know, I need running backs, as you well know, Brendan. I didn't force it. I mean, when London fell to 6, that's a steal. And then it was like, well, I'll take Olave because he's the next best player. You know, I knew I was going to get Spiller at 111, which I think is a better stash than Cook. So I think he's a way better player.
I do too. Here's the deal. You know, I think Drake London is the best wide receiver prospect of this class right now. Pre-injury, I would have told you is Jamison Williams. Seriously, I think Jamison Williams.
Oh man, I love Williams.
I think he has a chance to be a stud. What you need is the Lions to hopefully take a step forward. We've seen the Lions the last couple of years try to bulk up their offense. We've seen the Jets now. I thought the Jets had an amazing draft, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
they're loading up on young talent, getting Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. I like both of those guys there. I like Kenneth Walker in Seattle. I don't think, though, I think he has a bust rate of like 60-40, 40% bust rate. I think there's a 60% chance that he will turn into something big. The thing is, though, I don't think he's that talented in terms of other prospects. You can almost say Spiller was more talented, you know, a year or two ago in college. But here's the deal with Treylon Burks. A lot of negativity towards him. Especially after these rookie drafts started happening. I don't think he's going to be the guy, honestly, in Tennessee. I think that was I think he's being hyped up way too much. I think Jamison Williams is not being hyped up enough, and I think Garrett Wilson's not being hyped up enough. In our draft, Tyler, Garrett Wilson went 102, which to me, I would have taken London or Walker, but I still think Wilson deserves to go ahead of Treylon Burks. And in most people's drafts, you see London go first at the wide receiver, and then Burks go second at the wide receiver position. So I don't know, man. I don't know. You also see the emergence of Sky Moore, George Pickens, Christian Watson. So how do you view those guys, those second tier, if you will, wide receivers? Sky Moore has great opportunity. George Pickens probably has great opportunity in a couple of years. I wouldn't say this year. Christian Watson, good, not that good, but unbelievable opportunity this year. So I don't know, man. It's just so tough. It's all mysteries at this point.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this class maybe less exciting than others. I think Sky Moore is going to be a lot like CEH. I think he's going to be extremely overdrafted because of where he played or got drafted, excuse me. I've said this multiple times on forums, like outside of Hill and Kelsey, who are elite players, nobody in Kansas City is good. You know, everybody just points at, oh, it's Mahomes throwing the ball. Well, Hardman sucks. Robinson's never been good. Pringle's not good. Like, there's 2 players that are good on KC, and it's because they're elite players. You know, to say that Sky Moore is going to come in just because he plays with Mahomes and be great. Like I said, CEH. CEH got horrendously overdrafted. He's been terrible. And now you can't move CEH you could move him for a mid-second probably this year, not next year. Nobody's trading a 2023 third, or excuse me, second for CEH. So I think Moore's overdrafted. I think Watson makes me nervous because of where he played. Fair or not, he played for a very small school. It might even be D2. Is San Diego State or South Dakota State D2? Or are they D1?
I think they're D1. I think they're D1. Yeah.
So a small school makes me a little bit nervous. And then, that's what makes this class not as great is just the guys you're seeing go late in round one of the rookie drafts probably shouldn't be going in round one of a rookie draft, but they're just kind of the next best options. For me, if you're a late first, early second, I'd rather take a shot on a guy like Brian Robinson than somebody like forcing Sky Moore, but that's just me. Wide receivers are extremely easy to find. They're way easier to trade for. And me, I'm a wide receiver guy, but you learn the harsh way in Dynasty at times if you go so far to wide receiver that running backs are impossible to trade for, man.
They're never cheaper than when you draft them.
You got to draft them, and that's why, again, I felt perfectly comfortable taking Spiller because I think next year Spiller is going to be great. I'm fine sitting on Spiller for a year, but
you're probably going to trade him before then. So let's be honest.
I definitely won't move Spiller. He's definitely I had obviously mid-season. Spiller was my RB1, and obviously after the combine, Hall deserved to move to RB1.
Killer combine, man.
Killer, man.
Yeah.
But even with the numbers, I had Spiller as my RB2. I still do. I'd rather have Spiller over Walker 1,000 out of 1,000 times. I just think he's the better player. And this is kind of maybe a cautionary tale. We see these combine heroes and losers, but hey, man, we've seen it time and time again. The players that climb high because of the combine usually are not very good. They're just not. The prospects that have for 2 years been like in this tier, there's a reason why. It's because they're good football players.
I agree.
But the guy that runs a 4.40 who you've never heard of, and everybody's like, God, this dude's unreal. They never do anything,
I don't trust the measurements. I don't trust individual measurements at the combine. If they test greatly in, all the categories or whichever ones they decide to test in, okay, I feel a little more confident. But as you mentioned, even pre-combine, you have a good idea of who's going to go where. And then obviously landing spots play a role. But if we're being honest, 100% of the time, you should draft based on talent rather than opportunity. Sure. Talent usually always trumps opportunity. And a lot of guys who get the opportunity, they don't step up because they're not talented enough. Where talented players are able to step up in situations where they don't have as much opportunity because they're just naturally good. Circling back to those late first round wide receivers, honestly, I don't really see that big of a gap between guys like Watson, Sky Moore, maybe Pickens, in comparison to like Tolbert, Dotson, Mechie. I think that I would have traded out of that late first, to be honest, which I did. I traded out of the mid first, to accumulate more 2023 picks because my timeline's a little bit different. But I don't know. I would have traded back, or I was trying to package those first for, maybe a stud wide receiver. At the end of the day, I gave you 2 firsts for Aaron Jones and 223 first, which is a good deal, But I think that, I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable drafting in the late first. I'm glad you got Spiller. That's good. That's really good. I think he'll be good. But if we're looking at George Pickens, Sky Moore, Rashad White, Trey McBride at the 202, I mean, come on now. Pierce, then you get to Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett. Like, that just does not sound that good to me, man. It really
no,
doesn't.
you were in that
really
last
doesn't.
You were in that last tier where, you and I went back and forth for 3 days. I still think I overpaid for where the firsts were, but I don't think I overpaid because, as you and I both know, Aaron Jones is just not valued in our league. So
Absolutely.
to people listening, they're going to think it's insane that I essentially traded Aaron Jones for a mid to late second. But hey, it's league to league. That's his value in our league. And your picks were in that last tier where I was like, I was hoping to get Williams, but it's, coming out with London and Olave. I mean,
it's good.
Yeah, I'm happy with that trade. I still think one of the picks you got, I think will be mid to late. And I think one of the ones you got could be earlier. But like I said, I wasn't getting Robinson with either one of those picks. So I was more okay moving those picks because of that. If that had a chance to be the 1-1, I couldn't have brought myself to trade that. But
well, let's be honest, you appreciated more current value. You're contending. You're honestly always contending. I'm sure you've never rebuilt in this league because you constantly make moves to get younger or try to accumulate more assets to make further moves. But the thing is, 2 2023 first or 2 2022 first, obviously I would value the 23 first more because I think that class will be better. I think the 112 in 2023 could be the equivalent to like the 104 in this class. But the thing is, though, you are gaining a year of players in points, in which if London hits or Olave hits, you have two guys that are probably going to be more valuable than a random 2023 first, right? So I think it was a great trade. I really do. And you know what? It's weird to me that I'm viewing Aaron Jones as the throw-in player. Come on, a consistent top 10 running back the past 3 years as a toss-in player. That's weird, man. But if we look further into those types of running backs hitting those cliffs, that's what's happening. The stone is tipping, it's turning, it's flipping, whatever you want to call it. You have guys like Chubb, Cook, Kamara. All of those guys are depreciating in value so fast. Christian McCaffrey, in redraft, maybe I'd give these guys a shot, but in Dynasty, I'm even struggling to move them in other leagues. And you know how it works. If you don't trade them, if you're 1 year late, well, guess what? They're retiring on your team or you're moving them for virtually nothing. Or the flip side of the coin is you're 1 year early. Maybe you missed out on a good years of production, but hopefully you accumulated a couple first and reset the timeline. And so that was kind of my strategy with the full rebuild. You mentioned I either go all in or I go all out. And that's why I had Kamara, I had McCaffrey, I had Deontay Johnson. And the thing is, if you commit, you commit. And I undersold CMC like it was nobody's business for a first and maybe a second. But guess what? One more year of him being injured, he's worth nothing. So I don't know, man.
In our league, I'm not sure you did undersell. That's the hardest thing when people ask you and I questions about, oh, should I trade CMC for a first and a second? It seems like you're underselling. It's so league to league that those questions are almost impossible to answer. So, I mean, and the other thing, just kind of circling back to our big draft day trade, is I kind of weighed my options with the amount of picks you have and whose picks you have.
I've got 7 out of 12 2023 first, by the way, folks.
Yeah, and with whose picks you have, I'm fortunate enough to know that you love to build around running backs. So I weighed my options that I was going to come out with 2 elite wide receiver prospects, or if I held, I might not get any running backs anyways. If you go 1 through 6, hypothetically, I'm not getting any running backs anyways, So it was like I weighed my options of try to grab 2 elite prospects at wide receiver or just hope that I have running backs available where those picks fall. And when I thought about whose picks you own, it's like I'd rather just take my chances. I
could have the top 3 if I'm being honest with you. Now,
You're definitely gonna have the 1-1.
For sure. My team is
that's
bad.
The prize, man. Everybody wants Robinson. That period, end of story. It's like the year Barkley came out.
Yeah.
That's who everybody wanted.
So here's the deal. I think Robinson is just as talented of a prospect as Barkley, if I'm being honest with you. I think he is the next JT, the next Barkley. But you're so right. I got to be completely honest with you. In most drafts that aren't super flex leagues, you see the running backs go first. And I'm 100% going to try to land Robinson, Evans, Gibbs, Bigsby, like just everybody, bro. And if I land 4 stud running backs, Oh my God, that could be the equivalence of like landing Jonathan
It's huge,
Taylor,
man.
Dobbins, Swift. Granted,
It's
I know
huge.
Akers. Hopefully, you didn't take CEH, but that was the 2020 class. I'm pretty sure that's what this is amounting to be, that, bro. But I think
Oh,
this is
it's
amounting to
enormous, man.
be better. You have
Yeah.
CJ Stroud coming out, Bryce Young, a couple super talented receivers. I mean, we've known about this class now for 2-3 years, and that's exactly why you either load up or
It's huge,
you
man.
miss out. You miss out.
Running backs are too valuable. They're too important. And, you know, sometimes you learn the hard way. I mean, like I said previously, I am a huge wide receiver fan.
Mm-hmm.
I worry about running backs in Dynasty because look at, like you said, Aaron Jones, CMC.
Mm-hmm.
They could be elite in within 2 years and nobody wants them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but rewind 2 years, I took Jerry Judy at the 1-1 and passed on Taylor. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's just awful at this point, you
Woo, you
know?
probably, dude. The reason why I know you get your guy, especially those receivers, but the problem is the running backs. Even if you don't need a running back, they will appreciate so much more value
Absolutely.
after year one. The only two exceptions as of like the past 5 to 10 years, and I've only been playing Dynasty for like 5 years, so I'll say past 5 years are Chase and Jefferson. Those are like the
Yeah.
only two exceptions to where the running back or the wideouts appreciated more value after year one than the stud running backs, the top running backs. You look at Najee
Yeah.
Harris right now. I didn't think he was that good of a prospect, but dude, he's worth like 3 firsts right now. Look at
He's
CEH. CEH after year one was like okay, but he was still worth like 2
yeah, he
firsts.
was still
People
worth
would
a lot.
still buy. Yes.
He was still worth, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and Harris' biggest thing is he's the only true workhorse in the
Mm-hmm.
entire NFL. He never comes
Absolutely.
off the field. Never
Yeah.
comes off the field. That's
Yeah.
so rare now.
Hey,
It's
he's a stud,
unbelievable.
man. Hey, he's a
And that's
stud.
the hardest thing about running backs for me is there's 3 play on every team every week. They're so frustrating anymore because there's so many running backs.
RBBCs.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's awful.
insane, man. It's
It's
crazy.
awful. So, okay, Tyler, we've only got a few minutes left here. What I want to do is I want to throw you on the spot. Pick a player at each position. We'll start with quarterback that you think is completely overvalued right now. Off the top of your head, go.
To me, it's Josh Allen. Fair or not, you know, especially in Superflex, we saw this with Mahomes. I've said it on many times, many replies, posts. The top 10 quarterbacks are interchangeable. They're going to change every year. You know,
In
everybody
one
said
QB leagues, absolutely.
they said Mahomes is going to be the top QB in the league for 20 years straight, and he's hit it once. You know,
Yeah.
this year Allen will be QB4, Mahomes will be QB2,
Hey, Herbert's
Herbert
coming up.
QB1.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, so I think at the top those guys are so valuable, but they're also overvalued because there's going to be a year that Josh Allen is the QB11.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's just what happens. It's really difficult. It's just like no RB will really ever repeat running back
No.
one seasons.
No.
Perfect. I like that. And you know what? In Superflex, I know he's a stud, but at a certain point, you got to sell at their peak because if you sell Josh Allen right now, you could potentially get like Dak and a stud, a top 10 receiver or top 10 running back. That's really good value. I'm not going to dig too deep into my answers, but I'm going to throw it out there. I think Kyler Murray is incredibly overvalued. I think his situation, because of his attitude, could really start going downhill very quickly. I think he's talented, but I think he's throwing a wedge in between his relationship. And you know how it works in the NFL. Once there's an issue, it lingers and it goes downhill quickly. Let's move into running back. Who you got running back that is completely overvalued?
It's going to be a little dependent on league and owner, but Gibson. I think Gibson's incredibly overrated. They brought back McKissick because obviously they don't want Gibson catching passes, and they drafted Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Gibson is not the guy in Washington. Period. End of story.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and he was I think a third round, or was he? I think he was a third round draft pick.
And he's a wide receiver. He didn't even play running back.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird trying to judge his profile as kind of like a gadget guy that only had X amount of carries in college. All right, I like that. I think for me, I'm gonna have to say Javonte Williams. I think Javonte Williams has potential to be a stud, but I don't think he's gonna pull out the big season that everyone thinks he will as of this year. And of course, after this season, he's already got 2 under his belt. He's going into year 3 by the 2023 season. they got to start talking about contract negotiations. And once running backs hit that third or fourth year, it gets really difficult to retain that value because of how many carries they've had on their resume already.
Sure.
Let's go to wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy.
Well, always, but probably Hill, honestly. I think Hill will. I still think he's an elite player, like I said earlier in the episode, but hey, man, he doesn't have Mahomes' deep ball anymore. He's got Jalen Waddle now next to him. I think Hill will disappoint.
Sure. Perfect. Yeah, I think.
And he's 28. You know, his value is dropping regardless.
I have him at like a 70%. He'll be fine. 30%. You know, we could see.
I think he'll still be good. Top 15, top 20.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be a wide receiver one this year. I actually think Waddle will finish with better statistics.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I think he's the guy. You know, I would probably have to say Deebo Samuel. I think Deebo Samuel is going to have issues. You know, he's injury prone. He had a great year, but granted, he doesn't want to be a running back, and he doesn't want those touches either. And a lot of his points came from rushing touchdowns. Yeah. If you take away those rushing touchdowns because of a few factors, one, defenses will understand their gameplay a little bit more, and two, Deebo has come out literally saying that he doesn't want to run the ball. I think that's a recipe for a lot of point regression. So I think we'll see some. He screams sell to me, 100% sell. If you can do like 2 firsts for him, I'd take that in a heartbeat. Let's move into the last one. Tight end. Who you got at tight end?
It's extremely unpopular. I still love the player. It's Kyle Pitts. He's too expensive for what he gives you. Everybody points at that. He's the tight end one. He's super young. That has less to do with Pitts and more to do that tight ends are awful. They're all terrible. You know,
Mark Andrews is tight end one, no doubt.
Kelsey deserved his price tag because he was a WR1. Quite literally, he put up WR1 stats for years and years and years. Kyle Pitts didn't do that. Kyle Pitts is 22, which raises his value immensely. I'm not arguing against that. But his stats, he had 1,000 yards, but let's be honest here. They had nobody else to throw the ball to. Do you think Kyle Pitts had 1,000 yards if Ridley was there? The answer is no.
And they got a huge downgrade this year, in my opinion. Matt Ryan's not that bad.
And I love Pitts. I'm not saying I would love to have Pitts on every single one of my teams. I am not saying that, but there's a big post going on DLF about Lamb for Pitts, and it's just,
bro, no brainer.
I mean, I don't know, man. I think Pitts is overvalued based on name, age, and that there's no other options. There's no other options.
The one touchdown last year was kind of sketch.
There are no good young tight ends. None besides him. None.
Yep. Yeah, I think he'll be good. I think he'll be top 5. But you know, people were coming out saying generational talent out of Florida. Like he's basically a wide receiver at the tight end position, which I get. That's cool. But you and I share a similar stance. Tight ends don't matter unless you have one of the top guys. So I don't know, man. But listen, Tyler, I think that's going to do it for today. You know, we'll start joining weekly for some good videos, build out a website, all that good stuff. So, yeah, man, it's good to be back, brother.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man. Let's we'll shoot an update about our website coming.
Awesome.
Lots of articles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Just remember, you're in this for life.